press conference, and I think it's the first salvo and, things that are going to happen in the immediate future. But the Saints have filed a lawsuit to break their Superdome lease. They filed a lawsuit against the Louisiana Superdome Exposition Commission and also the state of Louisiana, and they're charging violations of their lease. And they also went on in the statement that we're going to receive shortly. They said that several weeks ago, the Sugar Bowl filed a lease against the Louisiana Superdome and everything for violations of the Sugar Bowl's lease. So they also indicate that it's probably going to end up in arbitration. So I think what this is the first step in finding out exactly what the Saints are going to do as far as the future is concerned, as far as their involvement with the Superdome or even possibly a new stadium or what. But officially, the New Orleans Saints have filed suit against the Louisiana Superdome and the state of Louisiana, charging violations of their lease.
Now, I don't want to take this further down the road than necessary, but it makes me a little nervous because this is the first thing they would do if, in fact, they wanted to leave town, too. Is it not?
Well,
they need to break the lease. They would have to break the lease with the Dome, and they would also have to break the agreement with the state. As I understand it, there's an agreement with the state that I think runs to 2006 or
16.
16, all right.
Well, in other words, what I think it is it's the first step
to begin negotiation.
But it's just to bring it out into the open and then say, okay, now what's this problem? What violations? And then it'll start the conversation between both parties. I knew something was coming. I didn't quite know what the approach would be, but it's happened now.
Let me just ask you this question, and we'll get. Of course, you'll have much more on this more in the news and also on Sports Talk coming up after the news at the top of the hour. But how nervous are you about the possibility of the Saints actually leaving or being able to leave the city of New Orleans?
Well, two things. First of all, I can't say I'm not nervous, but I don't think anything's happening immediately. For example, I'm sure the Saints will be here next season and et cetera, et cetera. I think that
but I'm talking about after next season, yeah.
I think that the Saints, from their lawyers, and they've done a lot of research on this, their lawyers claim that the lease that the Saints have with the Superdome is breakable. Mm-hmm. In other words, at the very worst, if they did move someplace else, the best the state of Louisiana could get would be lost revenue for so many games. In other words, how much do you lose for this particular home game? How much do you lose for that particular home game? That doesn't mean that they're going to go that route, but it means that what they want to come to the table with is a conversation. And of course, just you do the show with Governor Foster. He's indicating, well, we want to be creative. Well, they've thrown the ball back in his court and say, well, let's see how creative we're going to be too.
Yeah, well, this will definitely be on the table for questioning tonight of Governor Foster on the statewide radio show. Yeah, definitely. But you'll have more details. We'll have some bites from it from the...
As they're developing, and Arnold Filko's the front man for them right now, and hopefully we'll have Arnold Filko on in the 5 o'clock hour.
Okay, great, buddy. Thank you very much.
Welcome again to Sports Talk. Buddy Diliberto. All right, a breaking story. Within the past hour, the New Orleans Saints have issued this statement. We confirm that the New Orleans Saints filed a notice yesterday with the Louisiana Stadium and Exposition District, the state of Louisiana, and SMG, advising them that certain parts of our existing Superdome lease have been violated. This action was taken at this time upon the advice of legal counsel to protect the interests of the New Orleans Saints. Our Superdome lease contemplates that disputes of this type, if not resolved, will be submitted to arbitration. We understand that a demand for arbitration alleging a lease violation was filed recently by the Sugar Bowl against the Louisiana Stadium and Exposition District. Upon advice of counsel, no further statement relative to this subject will be made on behalf of the Saints organization, and it was signed by Arnold D. Filko, the Director of Administration of the New Orleans Saints. Now, the Louisiana Superdome, within the last half hour, has issued this statement. Quote, we have received a letter from legal counsel representing the Saints on January 10th, which was yesterday, expressing some concerns regarding their lease. This is the first time the Saints have notified either the state, LSED, or SMG about any problems with their lease, which has been in effect in its current form since September 30th, 1994, without challenge. We certainly recognize that the Saints are an important tenant to this facility, and we have consistently been attentive to their needs. We have worked with their staff and administrators in a spirit of cooperation, as we do with all clients. While we are continuing to research the concerns enumerated by the Saints, we do not believe that all of their claims are valid. If we deem any corrective measures necessary, we'll address them immediately. Right now, we welcome to Sports Talk Trey Williams, the spokesman for Governor Foster. And Trey, what is your spin on what's happened within the last hour, and did you all have any advance notice of this?
Well, it completely caught us off guard this afternoon. Went in and told the governor, and he was surprised, like everyone else this afternoon. Basically, what the Superdome Commission said is kind of our point of view also, is that, for the past 7 years, this contract has been there, and not one time has the Saints stated any of these problems before. We have had the Superdome Commission look at it, our legal staff look at the complaint, and so far we see no merits into any of these charges. We're going to look at them more closely overnight, also tomorrow, and in the next few days, and any that we do see that might need to be remedied, we'll do that immediately. We do not have a problem with that. The others that we do not see any merit to, we will just sit down and discuss them with Mr. Benson at his earliest convenience. Most likely that will probably be after the Super Bowl here in a few weeks, to hear what he has to say. Unfortunately, we think that this is an attempt by Mr. Benson to force the state into some type of renegotiations on his contract. We understand how important the Saints are to New Orleans and also to the state. We agree with that, and right now that's basically all we know. This is kind of a breaking story for us also.
Trey, thank you very much for taking time with us. Thank you very much. That's Trey Williams, a spokesman for Governor Mike Foster. Right now, let's welcome to Sports Talk Terry O'Neill, a former member of the New Orleans Saints. In fact, Terry, welcome, Terry. And I know that prior to the mass firings last January, you were involved as the front man in having seminars for the press and everything, explaining the landscape of the NFL, how all the new leases on the new stadiums were written, and all the details. And so you at least have a good background on this type of thing. Now, what do you read from the statement released by the Saints?
Buddy, there's one of two possibilities here. If it's something simple, like there weren't enough towels in the men's room, and we didn't have as many ushers as the contract provides at a Saints game during the year, well, there's arbitration provided in the contract to settle matters like that, and perhaps the Saints would be due a small discount on their per-game rent. If it's that, it's a complete non-issue. It doesn't deserve all this airtime. If it's the ultimate confrontation that people have been expecting and anticipating in the press here recently, this is a very surprising way to go about it. Tom Benson is too smart for this, and maybe he's being ill-advised to have someone issue a press release on his behalf and say that the club will take no questions, and to hide behind it in a hide behind some mysterious legal protection that they may have. When I was at the Saints, I think Tom clearly agreed with me that the issue of the Saints staying here in New Orleans and their stadium situation is much more a political and public relations issue than it is a legal issue. And that's why we went to such lengths last year to educate the media about how the market has raced ahead all around the league, and how even though this lease is only 7 years old, it's already well out of date. For the Saints to take any strategy other than to be collegial and open with the community and say, look, we have a common problem here. Let's sit down and virtually open our books to you to show you how it is we are non-competitive in terms of our revenues, and then let's jointly think about a solution, try to come to something that's good for the city and the state. For them not to take that approach and instead to issue a press release and say nothing further will be forthcoming, it doesn't match up for me. I can't imagine that this is the first shot of the real big issue that's been forecast.
Terry, I want to ask you a couple other questions. Stay with us through this break. We're going to continue with Sports Talk. Buddy D, the breaking story about the Saints filing a suit against the Louisiana Superdome, the state, and also SMG, claiming a violation of some issues in the lease. Now, the Sugar Bowl apparently has filed a suit back in October. Here's the statement from a Sugar Bowl executive. It says the Saints charged the Sugar Bowl, for box suites this year at prices, quote, well over market value, close quote. Paul Houlihan, executive director of the Nokia Sugar Bowl, says in the past the Saints have provided the suites free of charge. The bowl game's demand for arbitration says the Saints should not have control over those suites during the bowl game on New Year's Day because of the Sugar Bowl's long legal association with the Dome. Houlihan says the bowl has a contract that predates the Saints contract. We're visiting with Terry O'Neill. Terry, does that statement kind of focus on anything that you might understand what this thing the Saints did today is about?
Well, buddy, let's hope that's what it is. Let's hope it's nothing more than a few $1,000s as to, what the precedent has been and what the value of the suites are to the Sugar Bowl. Even if that's what it is, in the supercharged atmosphere that has surrounded questions about the Saints' long-term viability, you would think that the club would step forward and make it clear that, fellas, this is not Armageddon. We're not trying to back the vans up on Airline Drive and pull out of here, nor are we asking for a renovated dome or a new stadium. Instead, this is just something as simple as our having a disagreement with the Sugar Bowl about luxury suites, and we've asked the LSED to step in and solve it for us. And also opening a prolonged conversation about different changes in the lease and then what's on the Saints' mind and what the state feels can be done and sort of a preliminary talk to a armistice talk. Well, if that's the case, buddy, the way to do it, I say again, is to face up to the fact that the state legislature has had a deficit in trying to make the budget for the last 3 years. They'll have another deficit of $200 or $300 million when they go into session in the summer. The teachers have been waiting for their pay raise for 6 or 7 years, and the governor has promised it to them. So you have to recognize that atmosphere when you step forward yourselves and say, gentlemen, we'd like to jump the line here. We need a new $300 or $400 million stadium, or we need a new $150 million renovation of the Superdome. You've got to make the case for that. You can't simply issue a press release and then go hide behind it and say our attorneys advise we not say anything further. Well, my understanding is that on advice of the legal advice, that's what it really is going to happen, is start conversation toward the what you just said, except that this is the way the legal people told them to do it. Well, if that's the case, then there's no point in today's release, and there's probably no point in the filing of some sort of grievance over the current lease. One thing that concerns me, Trey Williams, the spokesman for the governor that we had on while you were waiting to get on, said that it caught them as a surprise. I mean, in other words, that doesn't sound good because, man, after all these weeks and months and everything, you would think there would have been some conversation, sort of backroom conversation between the governor's people and the Saints people, and rather than something that's going to catch anybody by surprise. That doesn't bode good. Yeah, exactly. These things, buddy, have to be carefully orchestrated. You have to find your allies, you have to identify them and line them up and bring them on stage with you at the time that you want to make your push. And then together, you have to be very clear in explaining why it is you deserve these concessions, because the public is sitting there saying, look, you've got a lease that runs for another 18 years as far as we know. The state is operating at a deficit every year. The teachers have not been paid as promised. Why indeed would we subsidize a private company? Well, there are good reasons for that, of course, that relate to the Saints' promotional benefit for the city and state around the world. But somebody has to step up and make that case in a very clear and sophisticated way. You cannot, and I hope this was just a kind of a minor blip in a grand plan. In other words, it's probably an invitation to say, hey, guys, we got to sit down and start talking about all this. Yeah, but if that's all this was intended to be, that's what the telephone is for, and that's what email is for. That's exactly what I said. That's why I thought that there should have been conversations between the governor's office and the Saints long before this. Terry, thank you very much, guy, for taking some time and giving us some expertise, because you had some background in dealing with this issue. Buddy, good luck with it. Thank you very much. For the past month, or maybe even longer, what is your read on the statement that was issued from the
by the Saints approximately an hour and a half ago.
Well, that's a lot of different things, buddy, but it's probably one main thing, I'm sure, when it comes to regard of the lease and violation of the lease with the Superdome. And I'll take you all, we can go all the way back to back in the game, the Atlanta game, and talking to Sugar Bowl people, Superdome people, Saints people, and everything, because that's when the Sugar Bowl had filed for arbitration regarding the suites. The main crux of this issue, this particular thing, and this is a long, drawn-out story regarding everything, regarding stadiums and all that, but the main crux of this is going to be that in years past, and that's why some of the things that have already been said tonight are correct, some of them are not, but in years past, the Saints and Tom Benson own, the 400-level suites are theirs, and they're theirs, period, end of story. They built them, they got to do what they want with them, and that was part of the new lease a few years ago. The 300-level suites are the Saints suites on game day, but the Dome gets to do what they want with those suites on other times. Now, in years past, until this year, the Sugar Bowl got a certain amount of suites to do what they wanted with, and then the SEC got this, and everybody got different stuff. And the 400-level suites were part of it. Well, this year, basically what happened is, under the new management, new regime, they said, no, we're not giving them to you anymore. You got to pay what everybody else pays, which is game day price. Now, from what you said, from the issue from the Sugar Bowl, they're saying above market value, whatever. Well, that may be true of market value of a college game day price, but the Saints got, and I know this for a fact, the Saints got the price of what they get on a game day. Now, they don't care what game is going on. They're sold the suites to them and give them the suites for the prices of what they normally get.
Well, Kenny, is it your read that this issue is at the moment between the Sugar Bowl and the Saints, and they're going to have to get into arbitration and talk? Or do you think it's the first step in trying to get conversation started about redoing the lease?
Combination of everything that you just said, and as well as probably 5 other things. The beginning of having conversations about the lease, buddy. It's my understanding, and it's just it's my feeling, and a very strong feeling from what I know of that football team and that organization and the people who run it and own it, that a new lease is not even an issue to them anymore. There's going to be a stadium under construction for Tom Benson's football team, within the next couple of years. If I was a prophet, I could tell you where that's going to be. I can't, and I don't. But a new lease and renovations of that building are not even really something that, this is something they've been working on for a very long time. This is not something that just popped up. For the governor's state spokesperson to say what he said is kind of ridiculous, although he may be making that statement and saying, this caught us by surprise, this particular issue, and I'm sure that a lot of this has to do with this suite deal when it came to Sugar Bowl time. And again, the Sugar Bowl was bent out of shape, that they had to pay more money than they've paid before for suites. But they needed them, and they had to have them. And you know, so that could be why he just made that simple statement of, this caught us by surprise. But the rest of it isn't catching anybody by surprise. That's why Randy Haney was hired. Now, Randy Haney, who you were just talking about, he's the lobbyist, okay? They won't even admit that they hired the guy.
That's exactly right. A state spokesman a short time ago told WWL that the Saints didn't issue a statement about that. That came from a third party. But the gentleman came up and introduced himself to me at the Swamp Function on Tuesday night for Pat Swilling, and told me who he was and told me he had been hired.
I know, and the Saints won't say officially, yes, we have hired this guy. He's the top gun. He's the top gun of the state. He's doing the deal for Harris. He's working the deal for Harris and trying to get that issue resolved, and he will work this issue as well. From an ethics standpoint, I believe what happened was he had to list his clients recently, and he had to put down, since he's with the Saints, the Saints down. But they are going to maintain their posture of, we haven't released this, so we're not going to make a statement one way or the other. It all goes to the same, eventually all points back to one thing, and that is that the Saints and Tom Benson's football team is in the process of doing what other city and other football, and getting to the level of everybody else. Buddy, they're 31, and that's indisputable. They are number 31 in revenue generations money revenue generated for the National Football League, and they've been there for a long time. They've been there for years. And with the facility loan that was made that I told you about back when we were in Atlanta, and let me explain that. A facility loan is money to do what you want with, not to build a stadium. When that brought the league into it, to where the league is putting pressure, not pressure, but basically saying they're going to have to approve whatever the Saints do and where the Saints continue to play football and make money, because it's costing them money for the Saints in New Orleans. It can be resolved in New Orleans, and they can make as much money as everybody else in New Orleans, but the league is going to have a say-so in this.
In other words, what you're saying right now, when the visiting team comes in, its share of the revenue from that particular game day is not like it is when they go to play in other cities, so consequently, the league's trying to get that corrected, which would probably be a new stadium.
It's not even close. It probably costs teams, and it's a break-even proposition for a lot of teams, just like Arizona. But Arizona just resolved their issue finally after 3 tries. I can promise you this won't be something that will go to the voters 2 and 3 times before it's resolved. Tom Benson and this organization won't let it go that far. And the league won't let it go that far either, because, buddy, there are solutions out there, and the league knows that. The league has solutions as to how to keep all their teams making basically about the same amount of money. Of course, no one can keep up with the New Yorks and the Chicagos and the cities.
In other words, solutions that will be suggested for the team that remain in New Orleans, but solutions that the league feels will have to be made for that to happen.
Absolutely.
Okay, let me take a break. Thank you, Kenny. Thank you very much.
The previous was from mid-January. Coming up, you'll hear an interview with Buddy D and Tom Benson on May 9th, 2001.
Stand by, New Orleans. It's time for Sports Talk with Buddy D, WWL's Big Daddy of Sports.
Are you nuts? You must like being called a squirrel.
Louisiana's Sportscaster of the Year, more times than you can say
WWL.
Now, the mouth of the South, WWL's Buddy D.
Good evening and welcome to Sports Talk. This is Buddy Diliberto. Listen up, New Orleans. Saints owner Tom Benson sat down with me this afternoon for what might be called a fireside chat about the future of the New Orleans Saints. But obviously, in this weather, there was no fire. We touched on all the main issues with the Saints owner. I came away with the impression that Tom Benson's adrenaline is flowing about his new stadium project, which he hopes will be the centerpiece of a vast economic development project, the likes of which this city hasn't seen since the time the Superdome was rising and made the dramatic changes in the Porter Street area. Tom Benson is a New Orleanian. I've stressed that point often in recent weeks, and I do believe it's the city's whole card in keeping the Saints. I thought Tom Benson had amazing staying power during the interview that lasted 15 or 20 minutes, considering that the man is just a month removed from quadruple heart bypass surgery. I know about that operation because I've been through it. For the purpose of this show, we've broken the lengthy interview down into 5 segments, but we haven't left anything out. So if you're driving home, keep your ears open for the rest of the hour. If you're already home, sit back and have a cold one, iced tea or whatever. Maybe pick up the phone and relate some friends, because Tom Benson seldom does this sort of lengthy interview. Let's roll the tape. Tom, why did you all go public with your proposal yesterday from a timing standpoint?
Well, buddy, you know, it just seemed like it was time for us to start talking about our position. Not so much our position, but what we feel and I feel that it's the best for New Orleans Saints and the best for this community.
Well, it received the 2006 deadline as an ultimatum.
No, buddy, you know, you got to look back on the history of Tom Benson and New Orleans Saints. I first got involved, why? To make sure that the Saints were going to stay here. I put a lot of money into this thing to make sure that the Saints were going to be a very viable organization and a good club that we could all be proud of. My whole intentions are today to do the best for this community. But we can't be a second-class club either. We got to be a first-class club. We got to compete with the other 31 clubs out there. And as you and I know, we're in a different world than we were 5 years ago, 10 years ago. So it's necessary today for me and everybody to step up and say, hey, we want to be in NFL. And we want to be in the NFL, we got to do things that are going to make us competitive in the NFL.
Your vision for the new stadium is to be a centerpiece for a major economic development project, similar to what took place in the Porter Street area once the Superdome started rising. What else would be included?
Well, you know, I think that the Superdome, some 25 odd years ago, certainly is a good example of what happened. You and I can well remember Porter Street before that. I believe that this new we're not just talking about a stadium, we're talking about a redeveloping of an area and make it for shops, downtown, say apartments. You know, just recently one of the leading newspapers had big articles about how people are moving back downtown. What a great situation we could have in redeveloping hundreds of acres, say, within our city, and have it come into a booming area again. I think it'd just be another great thing for our community.
I know you must have a site picked out. Is it settled on that particular site, or you're still open for other ideas?
Well, buddy, you know, I believe that it ought to be in the downtown area would be the best for this community. And certainly we have within the city of New Orleans across the river. If you just look at the views, and we, in the near future, by the way, we'll be exposing some of these maybe drawings and pictures of things that we think that, hey, here's the future, but there is places down there, just like the convention center got this property next to them. There's property on this side, property across the river. That just looks tremendous and can be redeveloped into something that'll just make us blossom again. That's what we want to do.
We'll continue with Tom Benson and his reason for agreeing to play another 5 years without any renovations in the dome, to give time for the other project to develop. Welcome back to Sports Talk, Buddy D. The lengthy interview with Tom Benson will occupy most of this hour, but we'll field any and all questions in the next 2 hours, and I'm anxious to see the reaction from our listeners. All right, let's continue our conversation with Saints owner Tom Benson. The reason you agreeing to play in a Superdome 5 more years and not necessarily to have any major renovations, is that to sort of give opportunity, time for ideas to surface, new ideas from business people as to how you can get this thing done?
Well, you know, I think as we were, you know, we started on this about 3 years ago, and you can see we're not very far. It just takes a long time when you have to deal with as many people as we have, the government and all the people that run it, then all the business community and the community itself and the fans and non-fans and all these people. So we got a lot of people that we have to get involved in this. So it just takes a lot of time. I think we ought to start tomorrow, but that's impossible for us to do that. So we just needed time to develop into this. But let me say this. As we move forward in this, I'm not talking about blowing up the dome like they did in Seattle. I'm talking about using it for another purpose. Get it set. It's still a good building. Get it set and let it be used for other purposes. Right today, they're using it for smaller conventions that come in that don't fit into the large convention deal. I know that because Honda Automobile Company had their convention in there. Toyota wanted to have their convention in there where maybe they just have several thousand people. And because the other strips all being used for different purposes, and I don't know if that's what it ought to be, a convention thing, but I don't think we ought to tear it down. I think we ought to use it for some purposes. And that's...
let the dome be a revenue generator in its own.
I couldn't have said it better, Monty. That's, you know, You got to know that the tax monies that were originally set up to bring an NFL club here and build a dome did its purpose. It's all paid for and everything like that. You know, now we've done some other things and building an arena and a few other things, but with some of that. But the big thing is, though, that now, in the next few years, we can start getting ready. Instead of spending $70 million doing things to the dome, hey, we move the NFL club and maybe the Sugar Bowl and hopefully the Super Bowl on a number of occasions, Tulane and high school football and everything like that. And we're going to have these tremendous fans that you and I know. What's the most enjoyable thing about going to LSU game? You go to LSU game, and that's real football. Real, not that we don't play real football, but it's different. It's a different kind of excitement. The atmosphere, tailgating and all that. The tailgating and everything. I could just see it now, and I think as time goes on and we have more plans to show, hopefully everybody's going to get really excited about this and that we can do this. Not for me. Let's do it for this community. Let's do it for everybody that's ever loved the Saints and that's going to love the Saints from now on.
Continue with Tom Benson in a moment. Tom Benson will talk about the location of a new stadium. Stay with us. Your dial's on 8. Welcome back to Sports Talk, Buddy D. We had a lengthy interview with Saints owner Tom Benson today, talking about the new project, a new stadium within the next 6 or so years, where he thinks it to be the centerpiece of a booming economic development project, similar to what the Superdome was for the Porter Street area. And we talked with him about where this location of this new stadium might be. This community hasn't really had a major economic development project like that since the Superdome.
Yeah, well, that's right, you know, and it's time we do it. Let's step up, you know. We've been going in the wrong direction, man. It's time for us to turn this curve and let's go back up, huh?
I agree. You acknowledge that you're fully aware of the important financial priorities facing the state and the city. So will you all come forth with a plan on how to finance the project that maybe it wouldn't cost the taxpayers an arm and a leg?
Oh, I think there's enough available funds already coming in that the original 4% hotel-motel tax that built the dome is a good thing. You know, in other cities, mostly other cities that got new stadiums, but not really. Now we don't want just a stadium. We want a total redevelopment too. But the tax monies are already in place for doing that. I think that's already tax monies out there in place to do this. Now, we just got to direct these things correctly, and we got to use, like the Superdome, for other purposes, disregarding it. Now, if we just disregard it, and we can't, then maybe we're going to need new taxes, you know. Maybe that's what they did in Seattle. I don't think we ought to do that. I think we need to use the Superdome for purposes, keep Porter Street very strong, and redevelop other parts of downtown New Orleans without the taxpayers having to come up with anything.
The new stadium, would it be a retractable roof?
It would be my idea that you would need a retractable roof, you know, because, as you know, in late August, early September, the very difficult type of weather that we have, but boy, what better than November and December when we have the ideal football type weather to have that thing wide open. But even with a retractable roof, you know, you can still have the tailgating, the atmosphere, and all the other things around it that would just make this another wonderful thing for our city, and then keep attracting more and more people here.
And when we return on Sports Talk, Tom Benson will pinpoint, in a general way, where he would like to see the new stadium located. Welcome back to Sports Talk, Buddy D. We're going to have the final 2 segments of the lengthy Tom Benson interview during this segment. Then we'll open our lines up to get reaction from the listeners. And I tell you, Guy, if he's not sincere in what he's saying, then he ought to be in Hollywood, because he's a better actor than a lot of the people I've said. And I do believe Tom Benson is speaking from the heart. All right, what about the location of the new stadium? In your eyes and the eyes of the NFL, what would a new stadium do that the Superdome couldn't do? And certainly you mentioned the tailgating and that type of atmosphere.
Well, it brings a football atmosphere more. You got a little bit of that at the Superdome on the outside before the game and stuff, but it's still not the same. It's still not walking in, seeing the sunshine, if it's that kind of day. Or if it's raining, then we got to close it off, you know. There's not going to be anything better, too, that sometime in September, maybe we might want to bring a team down from Buffalo and play them in this nice humidity.
You're a New Orleanian, Tom, and you know how devastating it would be for the city to lose the Saints. Do you find yourself sometimes struggling within the businessman talking to the New Orleanian?
Well, I think that, though, my first commitment is haven't been a New Orleanian for 73 years is to the community. But being a businessman, you have to make something work. Being in business, you got to make it work. Any kind of business, you got to make it work, you know. And that I think that today, we need everybody to feel that same way. Let's make a commitment. I'm making a big commitment. The easiest thing for me to do is walk. The hardest thing for me to do is make this thing work. And I'm willing to make a big commitment. I put all my resources into this. I put all the money I've already invested, plus a lot more, and saying, hey, we're going to revitalize this community. I'm tired of it being talked about nationally as going down and only a good place to come here to eat and drink. I think that we have to be more than that. I believe that the national, this year, you know, we're going to be on national television at least 4 times, maybe more than that. Boy, you think of the millions and millions of people who will see this and hear it on radio and then going to want to come to New Orleans and be part of this.
All right, Tom Benson, and so far everything is upbeat. But you know our politicians, the ones in North Louisiana and some of them around here, what happens if they have no vision? Tom, if for some reason it doesn't work in Louisiana, what are your other options that you would be considering?
Well, first of all, you know, I'm really committed to make it work here, buddy, and that, so I'm really not thinking about other options. In my own mind and heart, we're going to make this work. And I just know a lot of times we don't hear it, but I know from talking to people and letters I receive every day that there's enough people that'll be committed that's going to make this work. And we're going to make it work, you and I and everybody else.
You know, it's crazy, but some people have the perception that because of the discussions about Mississippi, that all of a sudden that's like a threat. You threaten to move to Mississippi.
No, I wouldn't do that, first of all. You know, I wouldn't move the club to kick me out, that's different. But just to move the club, I wouldn't do that. And that certainly Mississippi is a wonderful partner, and I appreciate these. But my first, we're going to make this work. We're going to make it work right in downtown New Orleans, something that all of us for a long, long time could be very proud of, and something that as we win national championships and keep going, boy, we can still stand up high.
So in a manner, Tom Benson would like to leave a legacy of an economic development similar to what the Superdome did for the Roger Street area.
Well, wouldn't that be great? You're hitting it right on. That would just be wonderful. There's nothing that would please me better.
All right, that was the Tom Benson interview, and does that sound like a man who was threatening you? Does that sound like a man making an unreasonable or outlandish demands? Or does that sound like a man with a vision? Something that's been very short supply in this city and state over the past 2 decades. Vision.
The previous was an interview with Tom Benson from May 9th. Coming up, an update on the Saints situation with Buddy D on May the 14th.
Right now, the big news on most everyone's mind is the state proposal put in front of the Saints today. Well, the state has finally put its proposal on the table, for the Saints to decipher. And that's what the Saints have been doing most of the afternoon, crunching the numbers, trying to determine how the state arrived at some of the numbers. Bottom line is the Saints feel that the proposal has prompted the Saints to want to go on and continue to negotiate, and that's about as much as you can get out of anybody right now. After today's meeting between Benson and Governor Foster and the proposal was thrashed over, here's some of the things that, how some of the people reacted. Everybody sort of being a little politically correct. First, Tom Benson.
As most of you already know, that I'm committed, have been for many, many years, that we're going to use our best efforts to make sure that the New Orleans Saints stay the New Orleans Saints and going to be in New Orleans. And I think we're making headway today in that direction.
All right, politically correct on the part of Tom Benson. Now, Governor Foster.
As most of you already know, that I'm committed, have been for many, many years. Well, you got to know that this is the first day we had a chance to look at any of this proposal, and I think you got...
That was another bite from the second cut is supposed to be Governor Foster. But anyway, if it's... let me see now. I'm trying to get some understanding from Bob Frost at the board there. Do we have cut 2, which is a minute 19 by Governor Foster? No, the Governor Foster bite 2 starts basically. Go ahead, and Governor Foster starts.
Most of you.
Go ahead.
There's most.
Okay, we have a mess up there. I don't know how it's messed up, but we'll try and figure it out. We'll go through the whole proposal with you. We'll talk mainly about this in this hour, and then, of course, in the following hours on Sports Talk, because it's the main interest of the day. The bottom line is that there's no animosity at this stage. In other words, everybody seems to be working on a plan, although there is a gap between the two plans, but certainly room to negotiate and certainly room for further to get the plans of both a little closer. We'll continue with Sports Talk, but first this.
Yeah. Do you own waterfront property? Are you paying taxes on property that's literally washing away with every wave? North Star Vinyl Seawalls is your answer. The North Star system is a vinyl sheet pile that's impervious to aggressive marine life and is completely protected from UV rays. North Star is so certain that their vinyl seawall will protect your property that they guarantee their products for a lifetime. Whether you want to protect new property or reclaim lost property, do it with North Star. For more information and a free quote, call 1-800-558-6702 or log on to vinylseawalls.com. WWL 870 AM. Traffic and weather together on the 8s.
Hey, we're looking down at the high-rise, the I-10 East, and the delay between Elysian Fields and that I-610 marriage. Right now, looking at the twin spans as it makes its way north shore bound. The delays just before Irish Bayou, so that's not too bad this afternoon. Back in town, we have Lakebound Expressway delays beginning on top of Carrollton with make that riverbound slowing quite heavy due to an earlier breakdown that is cleared. Those delays just before Galvez, which is just inside of the Broad Street overpass. On the Huey Long crossing, the normal slowing east and west of that crossing. 5 boats on the river to Chalmette Canal. 1 at Jackson Gretna. Rob Nelson, Skywatch 1. That'll be all 870 AM.
Come into Alltel today and get a free digital phone when you sign up for any Alltel rate plan. Limited time offer. Or sign up for Alltel's Family Freedom Plan and share your total freedom minutes with a family member for only $14.95 a month. See your local Alltel representative or call 1-800-ALLTEL-9.
Domino's been the leader in the pizza business for a quarter of a century, and that's no surprise if you've tried Domino's recently. Right now, Domino's is not only the leader, but they're giving double your money on Tuesdays. It's a promotion called 2 times Tuesdays, and tomorrow's Tuesday. Remember that. Say your favorite topping is a one-topping pizza for $9.99. On Tuesdays, you get another one just like it, free. Man, you can't beat that. Domino's special day. You get double your money already from the pizza leader in all the United States. Touchdown, Domino's.
This week, there's some baseball going on at Zephyr Field that you don't want to miss. It's the FedEx Conference USA Baseball Championship, featuring top 10 ranked Tulane. 54 games, 45 wins. The Green Wave has the best winning percentage in all of college baseball. You don't want to miss the FedEx Conference USA Baseball Championship this week at Zephyr Field. Individual tickets are just $8, or check out all the games for just $25. For tickets, call 861-WAVE.
Up first at Marshall Brothers Lincoln Mercury. For a limited time, 0 interest available on any 2001 Lincoln LS, Lincoln Navigator, Lincoln Town Car, and Lincoln Continental. Plus, your first payment is free. Maximum $1,000. That's right, 0 interest available on any 2001 Lincoln, plus a free first payment. For a limited time at Marshall Brothers Lincoln Mercury. On Veterans at Clearview since 1970.
Hi, I am Jennifer Zappardo from Zappardo's Family Supermarkets. For over 8 decades, our family has owned and operated 2 Zappardo's Family Supermarkets. And I'm here along with my sister and cousins to speak up for the women of the Zappardo family.
We always hear how the Zappardo boys, our dads, are in their stores every day, making sure the shelves are fully stocked and you get the service you deserve.
That's true, but the girls have been a major part of the family business since 1937.
Our grandmothers worked for years at both stores doing everything from cashiering to cooking and bagging to bookkeeping.
And everyone knows behind every successful family business, it's the women making sure the boys are doing a good job.
Zappardo's, not too big, not too small.
Zappardo's is just your size.
So we invite all of you to come to either location of Zappardo's Family Supermarkets, Gentilly at Elysian Fields or Veterans at Transcontinental.
And tell them the girls sent ya.
This is Dennis Woltering. Coming up tonight at 6 o'clock on Channel 4, the Saints want a new stadium in 5 years. But Louisiana officials are hoping to buy a little time. What is the state offering the team? Plus, not only is New Orleans drawing termites at this time of year, but the people who fight them are flocking here too. We'll tell you why on tonight's Eyewitness News.
Tonight at 6 on WWL TV Channel 4. On CBS.
A 19-year-old imprisoned for murder will die in only 4 hours by lethal injection. Now, in his final hours, the attorneys of family law will give him one last hope by taking his case.
No comment.
In the 1-hour television that could change your mind about the death penalty. This has got to stop. All new Family Law.
Tonight at 9 on WWL TV Channel 4. To Buddy D on WWL 870 AM, the news, talk, and sports leader.
Welcome back to Sports Talk, Buddy D. All right, the Ducks are in a row now, and here's Governor Mike Foster being politically correct.
Basically, what we have done today is try to come up with something that is realistic, that we think we can deliver on, we being the state, that will make this. The problem is, in this market, things have got to be a little different so the Saints can remain profitable. If they don't remain profitable, it doesn't work. So where we concentrated on was trying to see what it would take to get them in the upper 10% of net out in the league. There are a few variables that we have to work on over the next few weeks. It's going to take a real cooperation between the business community and the Saints. We think is there. We're committed to try to do this quickly. Now, when I say quickly, we hopefully in the next few weeks can say that we have an agreement in principle. You'll be able to look at exactly what we proposed today. Short term, you'll see where we think we need to go, which is do some things in the dome that we can do quickly and that will work. Everything we're talking about is without raising any taxes to anybody in the state at this point. We think this can be done even without raising any taxes locally at this point, the proposal we're making. We're going to have a long-term and a short-term strategy on that.
All right, Tom Benson was asked, did he like today's proposal from the state?
Well, you got to know that this is the first day we had a chance to look at any of this proposal, and I think you got to give us a little time to see how this might fit in with what we've been thinking about.
What's more important to you, Mr. Benson?
I'm happy that the governor and I are working towards trying to solve the problem. That's what I'm happy about.
Benson was asked, the Saints want a new stadium in 5 years. The state's trying to buy more time, 7, 10 years. What's his spin on that?
Well, you're trying to pin me down, you know. Maybe we ought to have it in 3 years. But I don't know. Let us look at this. We committed to try to work this out. We feel like that at some point, if we're going to be in a National Football League, we want to compete with all the other cities around the country and the other states around the country. And to do that, it is going to take a new stadium. Where that is, I don't know that complete answer right now.
All right, and finally, Governor Foster's final little statement after the meeting.
The one good thing today is that we had lunch. We're still on track. We still like each other. And we both honestly feel like we're going to be able to keep the Saints here.
All right, here's the state's proposal. Basically, they're trying to raise the Saints' revenue by $15 million per year. That would put them somewhere in the top 12 revenue generated by unshared revenue in the top 12 if they can raise $15 million a year more than the Saints are making right now. The Saints propose to sell the naming rights to the Superdome for a 10-year period for $3 million a year. Well, right now on that you can put question mark, whether or not with a proposal of a lease 10 years, whether or not the naming rights would actually be worth $3 million. They put it down as $3 million. That's subject to a lot of speculation right now. The entirety of the naming rights fees are flow to the Saints, well, that would be obvious. And net to the Saints, that would be $3 million. Okay. The state will provide the Superdome rent-free. Right now, the state will continue to pay all game day Superdome operating costs. That would be a net to the Saints of $800,000 a year. So according to the state's figures, you get $3 million a year for naming rights. You get $800,000 with no rent. The state's proposal continues. The Saints currently receive 42% of the gross game day concessions and merchandise. The state will now offer the Saints 100%, increasing the value to the Saints from $2.2 million to $5.4 million. So that's a net of $3.2 million to the Saints if the state's numbers are correct. The state will therefore provide from new and redirected sources some $7 million to the Saints unrelated to infrastructure investments. Naming rights, $3 million, free rent, $800,000, 100% of the concessions, $3.2 million, a total of $7 million. The remaining $8 million to get it up to 50 to achieve the top 10 or 12 target of $15 million must come from enhanced premium seating, which the state says can come from renovations in the Superdome or a new stadium. Now, the state's proposal on that is to renovate the dome at a cost of $75 million. It'll be $4.8 million in annual debt service. It extends the life and modernizes the Superdome, and it returns. Here's what the way they say and plan to renovate the Superdome. Relocate the 300-level press box to the terrace level, adding 18 new suites. Develop a new executive club lounge with upscale amenities, east and west loge. Add 25 to 3,000 sideline seats to the movable plaza seating section. Renovate existing 400-level suites. Create glass exterior in the club lounge. Improve vertical circulation due to changes made in ramp system to accommodate club lounge area. Cost estimated at $75 million, an annual debt service of $4.8 million. So that premium seating and suites and seating would bring in another $8.1 million a year, which would come to a total increase of annually for the Saints of $15.1 million. Now, the total debt service of $4.8 million, here's how it will be paid for. Some form of Orleans hotel tax redirection or other similar source to be legislatively worked out, $3.6 million. Redirect operating income of the Superdome from other agencies, $1.2 million. How would this affect those dedications and any from the hotel tax proceeds? Some would be reduced in whole or part. How would the operating budget of the Dome be impacted by the elimination of rent, granting 100% of concessions, and paying debt service on the renovation? Dome operating balances would be greatly reduced, but would remain a thin margin. We'll continue more about the state's proposal, and we'll take some...
The following report will be from May 23rd, 2001.
Welcome back to Sports Talk. Buddy D, I'd say in about 7 or 8 minutes, we're supposed to be joined by former Governor Edwin Edwards to get his spin on this outrageous story that apparently has been broadcast on Fox 8, where Harry Connick, the District Attorney of New Orleans, is saying that he's looking into the possibility of criminal activity involved in when the Saints and the State signed that lease in 93 and 94. I don't know. To me, that thing was public. It was run in the papers. I'm flabbergasted that something like this could come up at this particular time, whereas if there was anything wrong, why it wasn't brought up? Because, this is not the first time Okay, welcome back to Sports Talk, Buddy D. And now let's welcome former Governor Edwin Edwards. Governor, thank you very much for taking the time on a short notice like this. But what is this story that Harry Connick is gonna is investigating criminal activity involving the first Saints lease, the Saints lease in 93 and 94?
I thought I had heard the most ridiculous thing that in my life until this came up. This now takes the cake. There's absolutely nothing to that, and I guarantee you, I can say without any fear of contradiction, nothing at all is going to come of this. The contract was signed totally in accordance with the law. The law said that there would be a penalty equal to whatever benefits the Saints got out of the act that was passed. The only benefits they got was a training facility, which was $6.3 million. The contract provides that they have to stay in New Orleans until the year 2006. They can't even leave under any circumstances. And then after that, there's a $25 million penalty, reduced annually by $1 million. So we got far more than the act required, and anybody to suggest otherwise simply does not know whereof he speaks.
What is Jim Donlan's suggestion that the penalty should have been $90 million the way it was written in legislation? In other words, my question is, if that were the case, how could this be hidden for since 90? I mean, it's incredible.
Yeah. How you think anything that I've ever done as governor was hidden from the press and the public? Everything came under...
Well, involving the Saints, it would be almost impossible to hide something like that.
Exactly right. I would make this observation. We signed the contract in August of 1993, and the following, September of 93, and the following month, Jim asked, which was proper, asked for an opinion from the Attorney General about the contract, and nothing ever came of the request. Not only that, before the contract was signed, I had a meeting with the members of the Dome Stadium Commission, all the lawyers involved, the Saints representatives, and the press in New Orleans. We discussed the terms of the contract, and it's been well known and publicized for 8 years now, and no one has ever made that suggestion.
Governor, I know in politics they got what they call dirty tricks, but what could be the motivation in this particular case? Just kind of could give me a spin on it. What could be the motivation in this kind of case when at a most sensitive time you're going to drag Tom Benson into something that is almost ludicrous? And I don't know his reaction, but man, I'd have to think if I was him, I'd say, man, hell, if this is the kind of state they got, this kind of lunatics, I'm getting the hell out of here.
Well, listen. It's easy for people to accuse me of wrongdoing and chicanery, but Tom Benson is just not that kind of fellow. And to suggest that he would be involved in the lawyers that he had involved in the negotiations and the lawyers that the Dome Stadium Commission had involved in the negotiations, to suggest that all those people would have entered into some kind of a conspiracy, signing a contract in public that was filed in the public records 8 years ago, that every year has been reviewed and renewed by the legislature because they have to appropriate funds every year to implement the contract. To now suggest something this ludicrous, it's mind-boggling and almost sickening.
It really is, because from a standpoint of the sensitive negotiations that are going on with the Saints right now, Governor, you've been in politics a long time. Could this be that this is Harry Connick's way of firing a first salvo and trying to get reelected?
Well, first of all, I haven't heard from Harry Connick, and I don't know if he has any interest at all in all this. I was told after that fellow from the television station called me that the guy who's been stirring this up is Billy Connick, not Harry Connick. Now, even that, I haven't heard from Billy Connick either, and I wasn't even aware that anybody was raising the question. But I can tell you this, the contract was signed in public, it was filed in the public records, it was reviewed by the Attorney General, and it was reviewed by the legislature for 8 years in a row, and no one has ever made that suggestion. Besides, the law is very clear. They are required to pay whatever benefits they get under the statute. The only benefit they got was $6.3 million for a Saints training center. And that's all that we could have made them pay under the statute. But we got more than that. We got a $25 million commitment reduced by $1 million every year, but even that doesn't begin until 2007, and the Saints can't leave at any price until 2006.
Governor, thank you very much for taking time with us. I tell you what, I feel like making a public apology, even though I'm not involved in any way, shape, or form. A public apology to Tom Benson and say, you know, I've seen this city and this state stoop a lot of times, but never to this degree.
Well, I just can't understand how anybody would want to make that kind of suggestion without checking into it, but that's the nature of the beast. But I will make this prediction. Nothing will come of this except, once again, people rattling swords and making statements when they don't know what the hell they're talking about.
Thank you very much, Governor.
Okay. Bye.
All right. Former Governor Edwin Edwards, in reply, a reaction to that story apparently 2 nights ago that Fox 8 broke, where Harry Connick is supposed to be considering a criminal investigation of the lease that Edwards and Benson cooked up in 1983, and it's been public. I'm amazed. I'm absolutely. Apparently, Jim Donlin's involved too, as far as on what Harry Connick's doing, throwing the mud against the wall. Let's go to Harry in for Bruce. Bruce, you're on Sports Talk.
Yeah, Mr. Buddy, I saw that interview a couple of days ago, and they were talking to the assistant DA, and he said it was brought to the district attorney's office by an unnamed source.
The unnamed source was Harry Connick's brother.
I guess.
I mean, that's what everybody's telling me, you know. And I know he was involved in the dome at the time, so he had a, you know, I mean, well, if anything was wrong, why wait from 93, 94 till now?
A second ago on Fox 8, they announced that Harry Connick is going to be on Fox 8 News tonight having an interview. And the little clip that they showed in advance of the interview tonight, Harry Connick says that the deal smells. That was his quote.
The deal smells. The air that it's Connick's way of his first ploy to get reelected. Christ, if that's even close to being the truth, then you're to freeze in hell if you elect him again.
Yeah, whoever reelects him or tries to reelect him is crazy.
I mean, I guarantee you they're crazy. I tell you what, I've lived here all my life and I've seen a lot of rotten things, but this to me is absolutely ludicrous. Unless there is really something there. And if there's something there, go ahead and bring it to trial.
My last comment, though, buddy, is that if Edwards was still in office, I don't think none of this would even be going on.
Well,
and
he's out of office, and he's got his own self to blame for some of the, a lot of that activity. But this is a completely different spin on this thing, a completely different spin that from Edwards and the other baggage that was there.
One other thing, buddy. Who you like in the Eastern Conference Final in the NBA?
Oh, Eastern Conference Final.
Yeah.
I thought I liked Milwaukee, but then they lost yesterday. So, I don't know. I like Milwaukee.
All right, buddy.
Thank you. Let's go to a phone call from Lee. Lee, you're on Sports Talk.
Hey, buddy.
Yes, sir.
Buddy, I think I got a spin on why this is going down like this.
Please, give it to me. I'm trying to understand it.
What is happening, the politicians are seeing that they're losing grip and that the Saints might pull out. And so they're looking for how much money they're going to get out the deal if they pull out. and all of a sudden you're looking at a contract that says, well, we're not getting any money, but I don't see, like Mr. Edwards just explained, that there is no money. They can't pull out. The only way they can pull out is to find out something wrong with the lease. So the politicians are scrambling to save face right now, and so they can put the blame somebody else and not on themselves.
Oh, that's a spin. That's something to be thought of. And I'll tell you what, if that's a shred of truth to what you just said, they ought to tar and feather all of them and run them out of town.
Well, I'll tell you what, buddy, I think it's about time for somebody to organize a picket over on Capitol Hill. And I think it's time to see how many Saints fans we got here that's ready to stomp the ground. It's getting a little out of hand in the public.
Okay, you're breaking up on me, Lee. Thank you very much. Let's go to Carl uptown. Carl, you're on Sports Talk.
Hey, how you doing, buddy?
Okay.
I cannot believe I saw that myself on television, and my goodness, I really thought nothing was going to come of it. Because
well, I didn't have any knowledge of it because I didn't see the thing that night, and certainly nothing's been in the paper, and I haven't heard anything about it until in the 5 o'clock hour we got a call, and the guy asked me about it, and I said, man, I don't even know what you're talking about. So then we tried to start investigating what they were talking about, and I found out that it was a story they ran 2 days ago. Man, but listen, from a news standpoint, that's one thing. You can, man, bring them to task, but man, the Harry Connick is the one that I think is the mudslinger.
Oh my goodness! I mean, it's as if they're trying to, like a defamation of character.
Yeah. And of all people, in other words, Tom Benson hasn't been involved in anything criminally. I mean, it's unbelievable. Exactly. And you're going to drag that guy? I'm exaggerating the point. But if the Pope was here, it would be like Harry Connick all of a sudden say, we're investigating because we heard that there might be something that the Vatican did on this, and so we're going to investigate this, and if we think there's further, just throw a story up in the air like that.
Right, exactly. Oh, my goodness, I just can't believe that at a time like this, and this happened way back in 1993, and you bring this up now?
But that's my goodness. Boy, okay, thank you very much. We're going to take a break, 260-187. When we come back, we'll continue this conversation. Thank you. Welcome back to Sports Talk, Buddy D. Dirty tricks, whatever you want to call it, garbage. I had a call just now in the break from somebody that's pretty well plugged into the political underground here, and I was told that before the last election, Harry Connick, in order to get Mark Morial's endorsement, which he felt he needed to win, he told Morial that he would quit at midterm once he got in again, he'd quit at midterm so Morial could appoint Eddie Jordan, the district attorney. Then Connick went back on that and decided he wasn't going to quit at midterm and didn't quit at midterm, and now he wants to get elected. What bottom line is, it's goddamn ugly gutter Louisiana politics. Whew. All right, boy. Let's go to Roy, and let's go to Harvey for Michael. Michael, you're on Sports Talk.
How you doing, buddy?
Not too good.
Okay, this is Michael. I'm a first-time caller, long-time listener. I really love your show. You do a great job, and you've been great over the years, for so many years. But tonight, I had to call in and voice my feelings about this situation. The state of Louisiana is already around the nation. It's just been carried on, and we have a bad name for so many things already around the nation. For them to take Tom Benson's name and scandalize the man's name like this.
Man.
Now, what the thing is that the effect that this is going to have on him around the league, you're going to have free agents, people being skeptical coming down into business.
Right, it's so embarrassing, Michael. It's so embarrassing. The hell, man. I mean, believe me when I tell you, if Eric Connick is ever elected to anything again in New Orleans, I'm going to move out of town. That's how sick I'm of something like this. You made a good point. In other words, I mean, what's Tom Benson? It's incredible.
Yeah, and so you got people all around the nation that's going to hear this. This thing, things like this, it spreads. People waiting for these type of things, and to scandalize Tom Benson after all what he's doing his best to try to keep this team out here.
It is absolutely scandalous. It's sacrilegious. All right, thank you, Roy. Let's go to Vacherie for Floyd. Floyd and Vacherie.
Hello.
Hi, Floyd.
Buddy, it's unbelievable. These guys, man, it's just ridiculous. You know, why can't they leave it up to the people? If they having a hard time coming up with an idea for a stadium, if they want to do it or not, let the people vote on it. You know, who give these guys authority to recommend to represent me? You know, this is amazing, man. They need to put them all up in a plane and cut the gas off of it and let them crash.
Well, first of all, this is a contract that was signed with the state. So if there's any problem, it would seem that the attack would be on the state. How the local district attorney got involved in it with this kind of mudslinging story, it's got to be down and dirty politics, gutter politics, and that's what the caller tell me. I didn't know, man. You know, I don't follow politics. Harry Connick wanted Morial's endorsement to help him win the last election, so he agreed with Morial that he would quit at midterm, so Morial could elect Eddie Jordan, and then he went back on his word. And, man, garbage. They're all a bunch of bums.
Hey, one more point, buddy. You there?
I'm here.
Yeah. I was very surprised after what the Saints did for Pat Swilling, for him to get on your show and make that awful comment about the what's this place on the river there in a track.
Racetrack. Yeah. Well, you see, that's his constituents way out there, and they've been trying to get a New Orleans. He's been trying to get a racetrack, but again, you know, that's why I just think if you're voting on an issue that you think is good, why do you have to say, well, I'll vote on that positively if I get this? I don't like that. I know it goes on in politics, but I don't like it.
He haven't been in there, 3 months?
Right, and he's already learned that game? Yeah.
It's amazing. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go to a phone call from Mark. Mark, you're on Sports Talk.
Hello?
Hi, Mark.
How you doing, buddy? I have actually a comment. It's more like I love the Saints. You know, I'm glad they're in New Orleans. I want them to be in New Orleans for the future. But you got to look at it this way: if they move to Mississippi, they're going to have everything they want. They're not going to have any trouble with the state at all, any tax trouble, and Benson's going to get everything he wants. So,
but the idea is what he's trying to do, because he wants to keep it here because of all the obvious ties he's had here because he's a native. I mean, exactly. and he thinks that a new stadium would be a shot in the arm for an economic development in a downtown area which needs something like that so desperately, and you're going to get cheap, rotten politicians involved in something like this. Hello. He's gone. All right, let's go to Freddie in Mandeville. Freddie, you're on Sports Talk.
Yeah, buddy, I was just telling you a second ago, and you said it was incredible. You want me to tell you what's incredible about this whole thing? That you put somebody like Edwin Edwards on the radio. This is a convicted felon. You're trying to get an opinion.
Well, let me tell you what. He might be a convicted felon, but I'll guarantee you the man he dealt with as far as this contract with the state is not anything but a gentleman, and in no way, shape, or form has been involved in any criminal activity. And so if you're going to say a convicted felon, the guy in the district attorney's office right now, that's the one ought to be investigated. What, a back deal? He was going to, in order to get the endorsement, he was going to resign midway. So Eddie Jordan, I mean, what kind of garbage politics is that?
You have no clue about what you're talking.
Freddie, let me say to you, man, I won't say anything to Freddie. I'll just pull a plug on you. All right, Connick's got no authority over this. The state does. Connick only has the authority in New Orleans. So if he's bringing this thing up like this, it's got to be dirty tricks. I don't know what the complete motivation is, but it's got to be dirty tricks. It's scum. It's scum. Let's go to Roy in New Orleans East. Roy, you're on Sports Talk.
Hello, buddy.
Yes.
How you doing, sir? Look here, you had a show a while back concerning the possible financing for the new stadium for the Saints.
Uh-huh.
One idea that wasn't floated was the funds for the toll. Where's that money going?
The funds for what?
You know, for the money that you pay for cross the Mississippi Bridge, the toll.
Man, I don't know.
Well, look on an average basis. I did a little math. I may be wrong, but you can help me out here. Say on an average basis, you get about 55,000 cars that cross that bridge on an average basis. We're looking at least $20 million a year. With bond financing, they can each pay for that less than 10 years' time.
So what are you saying? You're suggesting raising the toll?
No. I'm not suggesting raising. I'm saying using that money.
Oh, man, let me put it this way.
Yeah.
The hotel-motel tax, originally, the whole design was to get the Saints here because the part of that package was to be able to build a dome stadium. That's what the NFL was sort of requiring, and it got done. Well, man, once they got all of the bonds paid off and everything, and they saw they had control of this money, ever think they're going to give up rights to toll money, to lottery money? Where it goes, nobody knows.
Right. Well, buddy, I'm going to tell you one thing concerning this matter with Mr. Connick. I'm not surprised. And the thing about it that really gets me angry myself, if you want to put the blame on anyone, put the blame on the people of this parish. We sit back here and we let these shenanigans go on, and we don't hold these people accountable.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. That's what I've been preaching for weeks now, but let me put it this way. I will say this. Up until now, I didn't know that Harry Connick was a scum politician. I didn't know that.
Look here. I'll go a while back.
A scum politician. That's what I say he is.
Yeah, look here. Go a while back. Remember when Mark's dad first ran for the third term? On the eve of the election, Mr. Connick announced his office was being investigated. Now, what about that type of time? Does that surprise you of anything?
I don't even remember that, see, because I'm involved so much in sports, so I didn't even remember that. But so now he's going to announce that he's going to be investigated, and now they had a backdoor deal where he was going to, if he got the endorsement for Morial, he was going to resign midway through, and Morial was going to put Eddie Jordan. What a game they play. Thank you. A phone call from Paul. Paul, you're on Sports Talk.
Eddie Jordan. What a game they play. Thank you.
Turn your radio down, Paul. They got a 7-second delay, son.
Okay.
All right, turn your radio down and then talk.
Okay, you ready?
Yes.
Hey, Freddie, I think you need to calm down a minute because, first of all, you support Foster before he go against the Saints. Same thing with Connick until he turns against the Saints. Once he turns against the Saints, you want to ridicule and say he's the worst politician in the state.
Well, let me say to you, when you got a man in the stature of Tom Benson, he owns the professional franchise here, the only one the city's ever had as far as Major League franchises are concerned. They're in very sensitive negotiations, and you're going to pull a cheap thing like this, which you don't even have any authority over, and something that, what else? And you're going to tell me that because it's against the Saints, it ain't against the Saints, it's against Tom Benson. And whatever the motivation is, it's politically inspired, and it's garbage. It's dirty tricks.
Let's wait until all of the facts come out before we make a judgment. And secondly, I live out in Ascension. Why should I be responsible for supporting the Saints? And in New Orleans, we saw the benefit for having the team in New Orleans.
Listen, Paul, you shouldn't be responsible for anything. You probably don't even pay taxes. I don't know that. You shouldn't be responsible for anything, Paul. Thank you very much. You don't need to be responsible with the politics they got. Nobody can be responsible. They can go out and start shooting people. We're going to continue with Sports Talk, 260-1870. Sports Talk, Buddy D, what scum bums we have elected. Good God Almighty. Let's go to phone call from Robert. Robert, you're on.
Buddy, this is Robert. I'm surprised at you. You're doing the same thing that you're accusing Donald and Connick of doing. You're dragging Morial and Eddie Jordan, a former U.S. attorney, named through the mud based on a rumor. First of all, the mayor does not have the authority to appoint the district attorney. So the source that you have been provided is totally incorrect.
Wait, let me ask you this. And again, I'm out of my expertise there. You're correct on that. But if the district attorney resigns in the middle of a term, the mayor doesn't have the opportunity to appoint in an interim district attorney?
No, the mayor does not have the authority. The election would have to be held. And someone
who would be the interim district attorney?
Would take that position.
Who would be the interim district attorney?
Someone, the assistant DA.
One of the assistant DAs.
Correct.
Okay, but that doesn't change my mind. In other words, that doesn't change my mind. All that tells me is then I don't know what the motivation is, but whatever it is, it's scumbum motivation.
You know, and you have no facts to back that up. And then the information...
Facts? What type of facts does this man have to drag somebody like Tom Benson into a situation where he's got no defense and that nothing's going to come of it? I mean, it's just going to be poor bullshit.
I don't agree with what Connick has done. I don't agree with the position that Connick have taken or that Donald have taken. But at the same time, I don't agree with you accusing Morial and a U.S. Attorney Eddie Johnson participating in a backroom deal.
Okay, Robert, I understand what you're presenting. Thank you very much. Thank you. All right, Alltel Special Sports Line for Paul. Paul, your call is free. You tell BUD.
Hi, buddy. I'll tell you, I just have a comment. You know, this is just another and a long list of examples of why the city of New Orleans and the state in general is a cesspool in the eyes of everyone else in the country. As long as we keep electing these idiots to represent us, we're going to keep getting the mediocrity that we get. And the guy, I understand the guy's point, he just called you, but, you know, there's got to be truth to some of that rumor there. And as long as we keep electing these stupid fools to be our representatives, it's exactly what we're going to keep getting. I hope that everybody understands and remembers all the things that we're talking about now when they go to that voting booth in a couple of years or whenever the next election is and vote.
Well, I'll tell you what, Paul, if I got breath at the time and I'm still by a microphone, I'll remind them, I'll guarantee you. I'll take a vow on that. Let's go to a phone call from Ricky. Ricky, you're on Sports Talk.
I'll take a vow on that. Let's go to a...
Ricky, turn down your radio. They got a 7-second delay. Go ahead, Ricky.
Yeah, Buddy D?
Yes, sir.
Buddy, you can hear me?
Yeah, I heard you. I heard your radio. And go ahead.
Okay, I'll turn the radio off. Buddy, I just wanted to say, first of all, you calm down. I'm a little shocked that you're shocked at this kind of stuff going on. This is Louisiana. It's been going on.
Hey, I can understand it when you got Louisiana against, you know, the scumbum politicians doing all this crap amongst themselves. But when you got them going to the point of taking a guy like Benson and putting him into something like this, that's what I'm just totally disgusted with. Just totally. Hell, you know, if one politician wants to say, you know, what they do, they call it the Bureau of Dirty Tricks. I mean, God knows what else they do. And if they wanted to, you know, roll around in the mud with themselves, that's okay. They deserve to roll around in the mud with themselves. But this is completely different than that.
It is, but if you get down to the bottom of it, you'll probably find it's worse than what you know. But that's the games they play. I want to make one other suggestion, but that's way off the wall. And I think, you know, I think Benson ought to pick his team and leave.
Well, let me say to you, I'll guarantee you that is now a possibility. I'd say that now is a possibility because I got to believe how mortified he's going to be about something like this. So that, I didn't think that was a strong possibility before because I think he was trying to do everything to keep it here. But believe me right now, Harry Connick might have tilted the scale in favor of Mississippi or Los Angeles or someplace else. And I'll say that, and until my last breath, I'll say that. It's a possibility now. All right, let's go to Ray in the CBD. Ray, you're on Sports Talk.
Yeah, I'm glad I got on before 8 o'clock. Just listen to you. Just calm down right now and listen to what they're trying to do, buddy. Because, you know, I'm a...
Who's that? You're talking about the
politicians?
Dirty politicians?
Yeah, with the dirty politicians.
Go ahead.
Okay, they know that this man is trying to do the negotiations. This man might have an interest in them, the Saints leaving, the Connick person or whatever, you know what I'm saying? So they're going to try to do 30 things. But what you and I could do is we could support Benson even more, and that's going to make it even stronger. You know what I'm saying? Even though the dirt and all coming in.
Well, let me say to you, I hope that all the Saints fans out there that have been listening or been told about this thing, I hope they do step up and step up and put the dirty politicians in their firing sight.
Right.
That's what I hope.
Fire on whatever their motives, because the timing of it is really ridiculous. I mean, anybody with sense would know the bad timing of it. You know what was.
Oh, absolutely. So okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much.
It'll be more support.
2 more hours of Sports Talk. I'll join you tomorrow night. Thank you.
Upcoming will be Buddy D's show from May 24th, 2001.
70 AM, the news, talk, and sports leader. This is breaking news.
And the breaking news regards the Saints. Here's WWL's Dave Cohen.
Thank you, Don. WWL has learned that Saints owner Tom Benson has decided to suspend all further negotiations with the state of Louisiana dealing with the attempt to come up with a new agreement to keep the New Orleans Saints in New Orleans. Again, team officials telling WWL that Saints owner Tom Benson is upset and suspending all negotiations. Buddy D has been been talking with Saints officials, and we'll have much more coming up, Don.
Okay, thank you very much. Again, I'm Don Ames with WWL First News. Now stay tuned for Sports Talk with Buddy D here on the station of the Saints Tulane and LSU, WWL 870 AM.
If it's happening here, you hear it here. WWL 870 AM, the news, talk, and sports leader. Stand by, New Orleans. It's time for Sports Talk with Buddy D, WWL's Big Daddy of Sports.
Are you nuts? You must like being called a squirrel.
Louisiana's Sportscaster of the Year, more times than you can say
WWL.
Now, the mouth of the South, WWL's Buddy D.
Good evening and welcome to Sports Talk. This is Buddy Diliberto, and we're broadcasting live from the James W. Wilson Athletic Center on the Tulane campus, and that in itself is a breath of fresh air. In the 6 o'clock hour tonight, we'll be visiting with Tulane football coach Chris Selfo and Tulane athletic director Rick Dixon. Before I start breathing that fresh air in the 6 o'clock hour, though, there's a few things I want to get off my chest. First, you heard the WWL Newsroom Bulletin a moment ago that Saints owner Tom Benson has suspended all negotiations with the state until further notice. A negotiating session was scheduled tomorrow. That has been canceled by Saints owner Tom Benson, who is now somewhere in Texas. He informed the media director of the Saints, Greg Bensel, that of the suspension of further negotiations with the Saints and the cancellation of tomorrow's negotiating session. All right, folks, I'd like you all to listen carefully, especially if you give a darn about the city of New Orleans and the state of Louisiana. In most athletic events, there are some momentum swings. A key play here or there that changes the complexion of the game and ultimately decides the contest. If Save the Saints issue was an athletic contest, there was a big momentum swing towards losing the Saints yesterday. And then ultimately, the Saints go elsewhere. Mark down the date, Wednesday, May 23rd, as a key play in deciding the outcome. Two career politicians, Harry Connick and Jim Donelon, booted the ball or dropped the pass. Their motivation remains unclear. First, let's address the claim of Metairie Republican Representative Jim Donelon. Donelon claims that when a new Superdome lease was negotiated with the Saints back in 1993, he offered an amendment to the bill which states that if the team cancels its lease, it shall pay a penalty of 50% of the value of all benefits and concessions received during the terms. Donelon estimates that comes out to a penalty of about $90 million if the Saints leave. But that amendment reportedly passed by the legislature was not written into the state Saints lease. In its place was put in a penalty limited to $25 million, which was reduced by $1 million each year after 2006. Now, here's the rub. Every year, the Saints lease has to be reviewed for financing to take place. We ought to believe that Jim Donelon waited 8 years before barking loud publicly about what he knew was a reported curveball that might cost the state $90 million. Donelon said on the David Tyree show today that he had asked for an opinion of the Attorney General back in '93, not once but twice, but never got an answer. Are there no politicians out there who are strong enough to look a comrade in the eye and say, that's wrong? Or is it a political environment that some watchdogs are like some dogs? Their best friend is the last person who gives them a bone or a plate of food. Harry Connick says he smells something. I smell something too. And it's coming from the district attorney's office that Connick occupies. Even Ray Charles, bless his heart, could plainly see something is wrong with the timing of this quasi-investigation. Here's a district attorney who, on his watch, political corruption has become so rampant that a group of young business leaders are planning to fund a corporation of corruption hotline, similar to the Crime Stoppers hotline, in which citizens can phone in with a tip about a crime without giving their name, and if the tip leads to an arrest, the tipster is given a cash reward. Now, when things get that bad in your community, that besides a Crime Stoppers hotline, your community needs a Corruption Stoppers hotline, and the DA doesn't spell any of that, but he smells this thing about Tom Benson's lease with the Saints 8 years ago after the fact. And he goes public with his smell at the most sensitive time of a current state negotiation. Now that really smells. Oddly enough, All of this has occurred just a week after the Times-Picayune published a letter to the editor from Harry Connick's brother, Billy Connick, in which the younger Connick wrote, quote, "The state can give a big thanks to Representative Jim Donlin, and the original legislation should be upheld so that the state can negotiate from a position of strength." My question, did not Billy Connick ever in those 8 years inform his brother of this important fact? Are there no politicians who are willing to stand up and speak out when obviously a game of dirty trick politics is being played? Does not our only daily newspaper see fit to take an editorial stance on such shenanigans? Folks, this community is in dire need of some young leaders. If there are any out there who are in the political swimming pool, let them speak out loud and clear. I, for one, will give them as much airtime as they want, as long as they're focusing on the #1 goal, to make New Orleans a better community and Louisiana a more prosperous state. I sincerely hope the silence is not deafening. Where are our young leaders? The old ones apparently are so entwined in their own personal agendas that public watchdog is a term they don't understand or elect not to understand. Governor Mike Foster was live at the WWL studios this afternoon during the David Tyree show, and afterwards there was an impromptu press conference with him. We'll have that when Sports Talk continues. Your dial's on 870 AM WWL. The number's 260-187.
The news, talk, and sports leader.
Welcome back to Sports Talk. We're broadcasting live from the James W. Wilson Center next to Turchin Stadium on the campus of Tulane. Come on out, check out the selection of game-worn athletic gear, and pick up your tickets to this weekend's first ever baseball regional at Turchin Stadium. For late tuners in, you heard that Saints media director Greg Bensel said he's gotten a phone call from Saints owner Tom Benson, who is in Texas, notifying him that Benson is suspending all negotiations with the state, including canceling a session that was scheduled tomorrow. Benson is disturbed and upset by the story and the implications that appeared last night, and we've addressed that last night. We've addressed that throughout the day. And so at the moment, the negotiations with the Saints on a new lease have been suspended. Okay. Mike Foster was at the WWL studios this afternoon from the 2 to 3 hour on that open-air mic with David Tyree. Afterwards, I and several other members of the New Orleans media met in a little impromptu news conference, or interview conference with Governor Foster. Please listen. Governor, after the hullabaloo last night, did you pick up the phone today, maybe, and call Tom Benson and express your sentiment about what transpired last night?
Not really, because I wouldn't say out of pocket. I had a call from the governor of Alabama, who was at Grand Isle, that asked me to come join him out there. So I went out there, and then I ended up taking him fishing this morning. So I was in contact with Baton Rouge, but I was also in a boat, so I didn't get briefed really real well until this afternoon. And my staff tells me that they've talked to as many attorneys as they can. They've talked to the Attorney General's office, and they feel like that the contract is definitely legal, in the proper form, and that nobody seems to see the bugaboos that's been raised. But I have not read everything there is to about it, but that's my report that I've gotten.
Now that you're pretty well briefed on what transpired, and you have a good relationship, you say, with Tom Benson, later today, will you try and get in touch with him and express your sentiments about how you just said?
I may well do that. I may well do that. I understand that he went to his ranch in Texas. I think he's very upset. I've heard that. So sure, I may well do that.
Are you concerned at all about the contract? You're saying you're not concerned at all about it?
All I can tell you is we're getting into a legal area. This has been around a long time. Nobody's ever raised the issue. You just got to listen to the lawyers. And my staff went to as many lawyers as they could find in the House, the Senate, our lawyers, the Attorney General's office, and nobody seems to see these shadows in the corner. They may be there, but they don't see them.
Governor, as long as you've been in politics, does this timing seem strange if this thing's been laying out there since '93, and Connick and Donlin chose this particular time to go on the public forum with it?
It does seem unusual. I would have to agree with you. Remember, I haven't been in politics that long either.
You said you hope this doesn't hurt your negotiations.
I hope it doesn't. I hope, you know.
Think it will?
I hope not. That's all I can tell you. I really hope not. And I think this is a good suggestion. I think I will try to get a hold of Mr. Benson and assure him that we still have a lot of confidence in him and hope that this does not affect our negotiations.
When the Superdome project got off the ground, the idea of a motel tax came up, and it turned out to be a very ingenious idea, and it was accomplished what the purpose was. Do you think right now that there could be some idea similar to that would service and maybe solve the problem as far as the state's finances and the Saints' request for a new stadium, where it could be financed in a way that maybe no one really thought of before?
There's always different ways to do it, but the truth is we started this from a standpoint of what could we do to make sure that he didn't have where he could have an opportunity to make a reasonable return, because that's really what it's all about. It's about money. It's not about whether we have a new stadium. People have a lot of pride in the Superdome. It's very convenient where it is, and a lot of people believe that it has, a lifespan that's quite a bit longer than next week or next month or 2 years from now.
In the days of John McKippen, he stepped up and actually put his job on the line to convince the rest of Louisiana and the northern part of Louisiana that this idea of a Superdome would be good for everybody. Are you ready to step up to the plate in trying to save the Saints and try and convince the rest of the state that this is something that would be good for everybody?
We're doing exactly that. We're doing our best to do that. The people that I've had negotiating this really want to see the Saints stay here, and I do, and it's the right thing to do. Well, look, good to see you guys.
All right, you heard Governor Mike Foster. We'll make some comments. We'll go to our listener line, all when Sports Talk continues.
870 AM.
Welcome back to Sports Center, Sports Talk. This is Buddy D. We're broadcasting live from the James W. Wilson Center next to Turchin Stadium on the campus of Tulane. And, folks, we're trying to get to as many calls as we can. In the 6 o'clock hour, we're going to be visiting with Tulane football coach and Tulane athletic director. However, tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock, Andre's taking a brief holiday. I'll be doing the 10 o'clock hour tomorrow. So anybody that doesn't with us tonight, if it's the chance that they can get with us at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning, we'll continue this subject. Let's go to Sid and Jefferson. Sid, you're on Sports Talk.
Hello, buddy.
Hi, Sid.
Long time no hear from. I'd like to take my hat off to you. I don't wear no hat after what I heard you say on Channel 8 last night on Fox 8. The way I understand it, I never was a fan of Mr. Benson. He made many wrong decisions, and that, as a Saints fan, I always wanted to win the Super Bowl. That's the only thing I have against this man. But after what came down yesterday, May 23rd of 2001, the state of Louisiana had the biggest business, the Saints, worth $500 million. If he sells the team tomorrow, it's worth $500 million. There's nothing else in the state's worth $500 million. And with today, May 21st, 24th, as I speak to you now, like you said last night on TV, if I was Mr. Benson, after what came down on May 23rd, I'd be making arrangements today, May 24th, pull this team out the great state of Louisiana and find another place to play, even if he has to go to Baghdad and play.
Okay, thank you very much, Sid. Let's go to Metairie for Mike. Mike, you're on Sports Talk.
Hey, buddy, how you doing?
All right, Mike.
Listen, I heard about this last night, and I couldn't believe it. I thought it was a joke. I guarantee you, though, I feel strongly about this. I think Mr. Donlin is getting his wheels greased from some other source to kind of put this fly in the ointment, because I cannot believe even a Louisiana politician would be so boneheaded as to pull this little ace out of the hole with a tender negotiation going on as it is with the state and the Saints. You have to be a moron, and I can't believe the man's that stupid.
I think that career politicians are arrogant, and so consequently, I think that they consider everybody else boobs, and so, regardless, even, and I, listen, I've had many conversations with Harry Connick, and I like him as a person, but, man, when I saw him say last night, knowing what it is, that there could be criminal activity involved, and he might call Tom Benson Tom Benson and Governor Edwards before a grand jury. I mean, absolutely, believe me, that is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard of.
Once again, they found a way to embarrass us even further. Thank you.
Well, I just haven't been able to figure out what the motivation is. Let's go to Gulfport for Trent. Trent, I know they must be smiling in Mississippi today. Go ahead, Trent.
Yeah, buddy. All I got to say is Louisiana's finally found a new way for its politicians to go even lower, to pull this out now. And I'm worried myself that Benson's in Texas now, and he's canceled all negotiations. Y'all better start hoping over there that Mississippi puts one hell of a deal on the table to keep them here, because that team's gone after this. That is an embarrassment, and that is a disgrace to Benson to do this now.
Okay, Trent, thank you. Listen, Tom Benson has suspended all negotiations. He canceled tomorrow's scheduled session, so let's keep that in the proper place. Let's go to Metairie for Keith. Keith and Metairie, you're on Sports Talk.
Hey, buddy, two comments. First, it's kind of a shame that you had to suggest to Governor Foster that he called Benson personally. He really should have thought of that himself.
You know, let me say to you, man, he really seems, when I close my eyes and I hear him talk most of the time, you know what I think of? Do you honestly know what I think of?
No.
Pee Wee Herman.
Yeah.
Really. In other words, in a sense, when I close my eyes, one time by mistake, I got into a Pee Wee Herman movie. Of course, I left after a few minutes, half hour, but I closed my eyes and I listened to him, and it's almost what I hear when I hear Governor Foster talk.
But he doesn't seem connected, and it's kind of like the blind leading the blind.
Yeah.
If he's leading the effort to keep the Saints here. But my other comment is this. There's going to be plenty of time to point fingers and put dunce caps on people later. But the bottom line is, right, wrong, or otherwise, that's the contract that the state signed. And if Governor Foster wants to do something, he and Ken Hollis ought to show good faith to Tom Benson. They ought to immediately introduce legislation to ratify the contract, regardless of whether, repeal whatever old law it was, but just make it clear. We don't care what it was. That's what we signed. That's ratified. And even grant a pardon, a blanket pardon, to anybody involved in the confection of that, to basically make it clear. Look, we don't think anything was done here. If there was, so be it. That's the contract we signed, and this is our show of good faith. So, Tom Benson, all this garbage is moot. It's off the table. Now let's get back to negotiate.
Thank you for your comments. Let's go to Alltel Special Sports Line for Dan. Dan, your call's for you, dial BUD.
Buddy, thanks for taking a call. I wanted to say, after listening to Mr. Donnellan, and he said that this was presented to him by a citizen that he didn't want to name.
Mr. Connick said that.
Yes, excuse me. Okay, now here's the deal. Harry Connick has a strong ally in the city of New Orleans who he could not have made any comments about this without his blessing, and that's Little Dutch Mark Morial. There's no way that Harry Connick, a strong ally, political ally, a liberal Democrat that they both are, didn't, he would have called him first and kept positioned.
Dan, what could, if that were correct, that premise, what could Mark Morial be reason to torpedo the Saints negotiations?
Because knowing the way Mark Morial is with his arrogance, he would figure that's an ace that he's holding. He would go along with this $90 million bid. He would think that's an ace, okay?
In other words, what you're saying is maybe with the expansion of the convention center, he'd say, look, if I get rid of the Saints, that I'll get that quicker?
I'm not saying
I don't know.
No, I'm saying this. I'm saying that he would like to hold up $90 million and say, look,
so far,
you can't go. I have you all.
Dan, so far, the only people that have spoken publicly, and it's a shame they spoke publicly, was Harry Connick and Jim Donnelly.
Would you agree that Harry Connick would never make a comment like this without getting together with
Let me say to you,
no way.
The timing smells to high heaven.
There's no way Mario doesn't know about this.
You would have to just got off the banana boat if you believe that it was just an accident about the timing. We're going to continue with... Welcome back to Sports Talk. Buddy D, again, in the 6 o'clock hour, I'm going to start breathing a fresher breath air. We're going to talk with Tulane football coach Chris Selfo and athletic director Rick Dixon. Tomorrow, I'll be doing the hour, the 10 o'clock hour on the Andre Show. She's on a brief holiday. And so if you want to talk about the Saints, we'll do it in that spot tomorrow. Right now, let's go back to our list line to Griffin. Griffin, you're on Sports Talk.
Good evening, buddy. How you doing?
Okay, sir.
If the city of New Orleans had any type of advantage before this allegation or whatever you want to call it, if we had any type of advantage, we just lost it. What is wrong with these politicians in this state?
Well, let me say to you, I think that what's wrong is that we as citizens keep electing these career politicians. So consequently, career politicians are always going to be arrogant, and they're always going to do what fits their personal agenda, not what fits the public's personal agenda. So consequently, we are to blame ultimately.
Well, buddy, the state better start kissing butt, because I think Benson is fired up, and I don't blame the man.
Thank you, sir.
Have a nice one.
Thank you. Let's go to Jody in New Orleans. Jody, you got about 30 seconds.
Buddy?
Yes, Jody.
Yes, I just wanted to say there's a really interesting article in the money section today about the convention center. Business is declining, and in the city of New Orleans, both the number of shows and the attendees that are coming here, but yet they want to build support for this phase 4, which happens to cost $450 million. And
Jody, thank you very much, and I'll make a business to read that article. Thank you very much.
Coming up will be Buddy's insight on the corrupt allegations towards Tom Benson, as reported on May 30th by Buddy D.
Welcome again to Sports Talk, Buddy Diliberto. On the Saints front today, owner Tom Benson released his strongest statement to date, in which he accuses the state of not being honest with the public in regards to the progress of negotiations for a new long-term lease to keep the Saints in New Orleans. Here's Benson's statement in a capsule. He said, despite comments of the state in the media that parties are 95% along in reaching a deal, honestly compels me to state that there currently exists a wide gap between the state's offer and where the Saints need to be to remain financially viable within the National Football League. Early yesterday afternoon, I personally contacted Governor Foster to advise him that the Saints were prepared to immediately renew our discussions. Although state officials indicated through the media this morning that a future meeting is imminent, no such meetings has been scheduled. I am further concerned by both the public characterization of the state's proposal to the Saints and by the statements made by state officials that the parties are close to reaching an agreement. The fact is that only one negotiating session has been taking place between the parties since the Saints received the state's proposal on May 14th. That session was held on May 15th, the following day. Notwithstanding the Harry Connick situation of last week, and despite the Saints' request for further negotiations, there has been no substantive discussions between the parties since the state issued its first proposal on May 14th. And in this period, we're joined by New Orleans Mayor Mark Morial. Mayor, Tom Benson, in effect, is saying that the Harry Connick situation notwithstanding, that right now the public is being misled as far as how close or how far away the state and the Saints are from an agreement.
I don't know how far the parties may be apart, but I do feel very strongly, buddy, that a fair agreement can be reached, which would lead to a long-term lease for the Saints to continue to play here in New Orleans. From my own view also, I think at this stage it may be best if the state and the Saints organization and all parties concerned would agree perhaps to a voluntary gag order for perhaps a period of 60 to 90 days, because I don't think that a deal as complicated as this can be negotiated in the press or in the public. The elected officials, myself, many of the legislators, Tim Coulon and forces in Jefferson Parish, we've agreed, and I think rightfully so, that Governor Foster, as the chief elected officer of all of the people of the state of Louisiana, should be the point negotiator on our behalf. And while the governor and his people have kept us well advised on various proposals, we've all agreed not to publicly comment at his request on those proposals in the media, so that the negotiations are not confused with a number of opinions out there.
Mark, as mayor of the city of New Orleans, do you feel that you've been left out of the loop, so to speak, in all of this?
No, I feel I've been kept well advised by the state. I've listened to the Saints presentation also, as has the New Orleans business community. But I really believe, buddy, the history is that in 1985, the first deal that the state struck with Mr. Benson when he purchased the team from John Meekum, Edwin Edwards was governor. He was the chief negotiator and the chief spokesperson. In 1992, when I was a member of the state Senate, and a new lease was written for the benefit of the Saints. Governor Edwards was also governor. He was the chief negotiator. And I think in both of those instances, there was a successful result with a single person, a chief elected officer of the state as chief negotiator. And I think we should follow that pattern in this instance with Governor Foster. And I feel that he and his people have put tremendous work and tremendous effort. And I think everyone's united in believing that the New Orleans Saints are a good, strong benefit to the state, the metro area, and the city. And the details of what is fair for all have to be worked out between the governor and Mr. Benson.
I'm going to ask a question. We're going to take a break. We'll come back and we'll discuss it with you again. Your silence up until possibly now on the Harry Connick torpedo that hit broadside in the middle of last week.
You know, buddy, no one should be, no one can honestly say that they were surprised about the dispute about the Donlan Amendment. That amendment, which was passed by the state legislature, was voted on by probably every member of the state legislature back in 1993. In addition to that, a letter to the editor appeared 2 to 3 weeks ago before Harry Connick said a thing, that there was some dispute out there. I can faithfully say to you that until I read that letter to the editor, and I was in the legislature at that time, I did not realize that there was a dispute between what state law said and what the lease, in fact, said. It came as a surprise to me because there was very little discussion after state law passed with respect to what, in fact, the lease between the Saints and the state, in fact, said.
So up until last week, you felt that the Saints had a lease that would be possibly a $90 million penalty if they tried to break it early?
I honestly didn't know specifically what the penalty was. I knew what the penalty in the lease was, but I didn't know that that penalty was different than what state law said. And that's a dispute. I don't know what the result of that, but, you know, buddy, I think, you know, getting caught up into that, Tom Benson, I'm going to take Tom Benson at his word. He wants to stay here. Everyone wants him to stay here. We need to make this team viable. We need to do it within the parameters that this state and this city and this region also have many other issues that we need to confront, many other demands on our finances.
We're visiting with New Orleans Mayor Mark Morial, 260-187. We'll be back after this.
Now, back to Buddy D on WWL 870 AM, the news, talk, and sports leader.
Welcome back to Sports Talk Buddy D. Our guest is Mark Morial, Mayor of New Orleans. Mayor, a few weeks ago when the Times-Picayune ran a front-page story about 3 downtown sites that the Saints were considering as possible locations for a new stadium. Did that surprise you, and were you angry?
Well, I had no prior knowledge or prior information. Like most people, I learned of it the first time I read about it in the paper several weeks ago, and had no information and felt it could have been handled a little bit differently. But be that as it may, one thing I feel very strongly about is that we should not absolutely shut the door on the prospect of a new stadium. But we need to be absolutely, positively convinced beyond any shadow of a doubt that that great facility right behind you, the Louisiana Superdome, can't do the trick. I love the Dome. I think most New Orleanians love the Dome. It's a wonderful facility that I think still has many, many years of useful life. And with a renovation, I think it can retain its status as the #1 sports facility anywhere in the world.
But the position of the league and also of the Saints organization is completely opposite of that. They certainly think the Superdome per se has got a long life, but they feel that from a long-term success of the team, that a new stadium and all the benefits a new stadium brings is a one-purpose facility.
Well, Commissioner Tagliabue and his people, I feel, have great confidence in that dome. That's why we've had 9 Super Bowls there. But before a state or a city makes the monumental decision to spend $500 million on a new public works project, which is what a new stadium would be, there's got to be a lot of analysis and a lot of planning done. And at present, it's my own view that the Saints are a priority. Phase 4 of the convention center is a priority. I support...
Let me stop right there. Do you feel, as might have been suggested in the Times-Picayune recently, that it's got to be either or the expansion of the convention center or the Saints, because it can't be both?
It's the same argument that was made when we built the arena, that we either had to have the arena or we had to have phase 3. We have both. Both have performed well. Both have been an economic benefit to the city, the region, and the state. So I'm saying we should work to achieve both goals, phase 4 and also a proper solution for the Saints. But I also believe that some of the things Tim Coulon wants to do, such as a performing arts center in Jefferson Parish, is an important project, as is the Automobile Motor Speedway out in New Orleans East that many people have talked about. And, buddy, I think the way we melded together the last set of projects back in 92 and 93, the last renovation of the Dome, the new training camp for the Saints, the arena, the Alario Center, improvements to the Pontchartrain Center, along with Zephyr Stadium, which were part of a package at the time, that we've got to strive to do all of these things as a part of a package. It's going to take some creative financing. It's going to take some new ideas. But when I listen to everyone, I think we make a mistake if we think that it's just an either-or proposition. The other thing, buddy, is that we have to look at these priorities alongside all of the other infrastructure needs this city, the entire metropolitan area, and the state has. Streets and crumbling infrastructure, schools and broken down classrooms, that's important too. And I don't want to mix the two, but it's keeping what we're talking about here in the proper perspective.
Don't you think that a new stadium on the riverfront would be a tremendous economic impact on the city, similar to what happened on Podger Street, which really was a blighted area?
Buddy, I'm not closing the door on that, but, you know, the Dome, which started out as a $30 million project, became a $163 million project. There was careful planning. There was a lot of discussion and a lot of debate. Phase 4 of the convention center has been preceded by market research, analysis, a feasibility study to determine the best location on the site. You've got to do all of that before you say yay or nay. Let's keep in mind, buddy, I've visited many of these new stadiums. Tampa Stadium, for example, and it's a nice building. It isn't as nice as the Louisiana Superdome, and it's a brand new building. We've got more gusto, more features, and in my own opinion, a better place to watch football over there in the Dome than they've got in some of these new stadiums. So let's not automatically believe that any new stadium is going to be better than that Louisiana Superdome, which is a jewel of a facility, which is as great, I think, when history writes the chapter of that building as the Roman Coliseum and Yankee Stadium and some of the great sports facilities that have been built.
Mayor, you're telling us that another subject that you and Harry Connick aren't, from time to time friends on the telephone?
We are very good friends.
And discuss things like last week that you said you didn't know anything about.
Harry Connick has never once in our long period of friendship ever tipped me off prior to any investigation he's conducted or announced. And I think that's the way it ought to be. I don't ask him to tip me off, and I don't want to be tipped off.
And you claim you were unaware that he was holding that press conference last Friday morning to announce that this investigation within 24 hours was ended.
Not aware of it at all, but I tell you, I am aware that there's been a lot of conversation out there about the Donlan Amendment and the Donlan Amendment versus the lease and all of these issues about what penalty might apply in the event that the team tried to relocate. But as I said, I take Tom Benson at his word. One thing we can all agree on is that we want that team. That team's an economic benefit to this city. It's a point of pride for not only the city, but also the state and the region. I'm so pleased they had a winning season. I can't wait till training camp opens again. And I feel they're going to have a great season. They're going to be in the NFC South. Everything points
not until next year in the NFC South.
Everything points to them
let me ask
making New Orleans their home for a long time.
Let me ask you one final question. Do you feel that you can become more active, not necessarily publicly, but at least behind the scenes and getting the ideas, how creative ideas? With the hotel tax was the thing that really was the ingenious idea that actually helped fund the Superdome and all the other projects.
Let me tell you something, buddy. I'm comfortable with the manner in which the Foster administration has kept me apprised. I'm willing to play a more active role in the negotiations if I'm asked by the parties, by the Foster administration, and by Mr. Benson, if that would benefit the situation, because I think it's important to our city, it's important to the people that I represent, it's important to the region. What the governor's done is periodically, and he's done it 2 or maybe 3 times, is he's called together the legislators from the region, along with myself and Tim Coulon, to brief us on the status of the negotiations. I mean, we've had a number of fairly extensive meetings, and those meetings, I feel, have been very useful in keeping everyone up to date. But what I want you to note, buddy, is that, you know, we were asked by the governor, and I think if I were in his shoes, I would have asked the same thing, and that is, please don't go out and comment one way or another, even though you may have opinions on the Saints' proposal, on our proposal.
Having been in that negotiation and advised of what was going on, did you have the opinion, like other politicians had, that Perry, for one, that said they were 95% within the reach of an agreement, and Ken Hollis said that he felt that it was really close to getting done, or did you think it was still far away?
Having never been in the negotiations, but having the benefit of both the Saints' proposal and the state's proposal, what I would say is that both proposals would give the Saints a significant boost to their bottom line, but they utilize different approaches. They utilize a whole different roads, if you will, to get to Rome. And I could not characterize how close they are, but at this point, buddy, the discussion is exciting and it's important. But I really think that if the state and the Saints would agree, maybe to 60 days, a 60-day period where things cool off, at least publicly, allow them to go quietly negotiate and hash things out, I think it would promote a better deal at the end. I really fundamentally do that because there's so much controversy surrounding this that many people out in the community have become confused about where the situation is today and what do the Saints really want versus what the state is prepared to really give. But at the end of the day, buddy, whatever the deal is, we've got to give the public on our side. We've got to have the legislature on our side. We've got to have the local elected officials in both the city and Jefferson Parish and the entire region on our side. And we've also got to have, very importantly, the Saints on our side.
And we got to have the mayor step up to the plate, not on a daily basis, because as you said, you're not going to comment on everything that happens, but maybe when some of the more important things come up, comment publicly.
Buddy, I'm here for you anytime.
Good enough. Thanks you very
buddy.
much. Okay, sir. We're going to continue with Sports Talk, but first this.